Okay, today I got a ranking video, and I'm ranking all the Sternritters. Any of them that have a shrift, a letter, I'm ranking all of them. From worst to best. Starting with who I think's the worst. At 27, I have the Question. This is Gabrieli. See, this, person, they were taken out by Kenpachi. He pulled this guy's throat out. Like, no diff, this guy. Just, and he was gone. I have him at the bottom. Don't even know what his shrift works like. I think he asks a question, and if you answer him, you could, die. I have no idea what the fuck it looks like. He got killed off early on. For the same reason I got number 26, I have the Roar. That is Jerome. He also fought against Kenpachi. A little tougher than the last guy, but at the same time, he got low diffed by Kenpachi. He screams, he roars, and he creates these sonic booms, but it's like, I don't see any captain really, worrying about that shit, to be honest with you. He's at 26. At number 25, I got the Underbelly. This guy, the Underbelly, I forget what his name is. This guy, he ain't that powerful. I wouldn't give him higher than those guys beneath him. He survived long enough during the Blood War. I think he made it to part 2 or 3. At number 24, I have Robert, the guy who shot Shunsui's eye out when he was like not locked in. He sensed Yamamoto's Reiatsu, depleting, right? That he was dying. He sensed him dying. So he was like, oh shit, he was blindsided, He shouldn't have done that. And that's like the best feat that guy had, was scarring the future head captain by shooting his eye, right? Which is pretty, all right. But he was also, he sees an opportunity. You're supposed to do that. But had he been locked in the whole time, it wouldn't have happened. And that's a fact, bro. At 23, I got Pepe the Love. He can make people fall in love with him. So then you ain't attacking him because you're in love with this guy. Why would I attack Pepe? I love this guy. He's a lovable character. I don't think I can, cut this man down. And that's how his shrift works. It affects, people. But when you realize it, you can get out of it. There's a lot of, he ain't physically, menacing either. Like, he can't do anything to you besides, make you fall in love with him. Then you start thinking, he's an ally and shit like that. Or I shouldn't attack this guy. Still, nice move, but not nice enough. Then I got Nianzol. This guy is the wind. He can twist people around and round and round until they burst. Boom. He went with Yhwach to the Royal Guard Palace. He's not a part of the shoot stopper, but he was one of the regular Sternritter that went. he's like, um, he's like twisting these people, trying to twist Senjumaru. And she's like, oh, I can do better than that. She ended up, low dipping this guy. You know, this guy wasn't, no one was really sweating him. At number 21, I have Giselle the Zombie. That's her shrift. She can turn people into zombies, people who have passed. She can bring them back to life as zombies and have an undead army. She was creating a sizable force, with her shrift. She brought back Hitsugaya, all kinds of individuals. Strength in numbers kind of shrift, but her herself, she's not that powerful. Like, if you have to fight her straight up, you can kill her, and then if you kill her, then, her powers are, voided. She can't do anything herself physically, but her shrift is powerful because she can bring people back to life. People who died on the battlefield. But even when she does that, they don't always, fight like they usually do. But it's still, threatening to people who are like not captain level. We got at number 20 out Littoto the Gluttony. She eats people basically. She can open her mouth really big and eat people. Hey man, she's just one of those girls who can like get down on some eating and shit. She looks small and other things, right? Quite deceptive, but then she can eat like a whole bunch of people in one. She was one of the ones who survived the blight. So basically, when Yhwach called his powers back to him, a whole bunch of them died, like Pepe, Robert, a whole bunch of them got killed. But she survived. She was one of the ones that survived. She decided to call truth to Soul Reapers. I got her at number 20. But we break into the top 20. We got 19 at Meninas. She is the power. So she looks like a, sweet, attractive looking young woman. But boom, she hits you really fucking hard. And she's like, oh, I didn't mean to hit you that hard. Are you okay? And you're sitting there with the fucking, hole in your stomach, dead. She's like that. So physically, she's powerful, right? Hence her shrift, right? She has pretty damn good physical strength. I have her at number 19. At number 18, I have Candice the Thunderbolt. This girl is an aggressive type. She's the type that likes to, act first, ask questions later. When she's seen Ichigo, well, first she saw Kenpachi and she's like, we gotta attack this guy while he's down. Boom. Ichigo shows up and then she's like, ooh, I don't care if he's one of the potential war threats to His Majesty. I'm still going in on him. She starts to use her fucking lightning bolts. But unfortunately, she's up against a real fucking, player, right? In the game. He's literally player one. He takes her out, but, one attack. Boom! She got cooked. She was then asking for help with recovery from somebody who was weaker than her. But if she had came across somebody who was like not captain level, she probably would have killed them. And she has that kind of, energy. We got 17. 17, I got Driscoll. This is the Overkill. This is the man who killed Sasakibe, right? He's like, steals his Bankai, forces him to draw his Bankai, first off, which we had no idea this man had until the Blood War. You know, that shit never came out against Ichigo or against Aizen. But when it came time for the Blood War, he was like pulling that shit out. He got his Bankai snatched by this guy. And then this guy, he ran through a whole bunch of Soul Reapers. He's seen the corpses everywhere. Shuhei was trying to fight against him. And then the head captain was like, calm down, son. I got this. Boom. You know, one taps this guy, Yamamoto. I'm telling you, you know, basically this guy, you know, lieutenants would not be able to stand against this guy. You know, this guy's powerful. That's why I got him at number 17. At number 16, I have Quilge. Now, this guy was sent to Wako Mundo to recruit the Ronkars into the, you know, Sternritter's ranks. You know, you will now be a part of His Majesty's, you know, army, or you get killed. And he's running the whole show there. Like, he, you know, caught him off. You know, then the Trebesta unit, you know, Tirha Bell was already captured. He's fighting against our own. He even absorbed our own's energy, which goes against what he's supposed to do. He becomes some ugly ass creature. He actually boxes Ichigo in. That's why he wasn't able to get to the Soul Society in time to help everybody out in part 1, because of this guy. It was tough for him to break through the barrier. And he never actually broke through it. It was somebody killed Quilge, this guy, and then he was able to go through. I'd say this guy can only be defeated by people of the captain level class. If their name's not Renji or anybody who's like trained with the Royal Guard, yeah, this guy is tough. 15, you know, if they're not captain level. 15, I got BG9. This is the guy who fought against Soifone, stole her Bankai, and then later, you know, came to finish the job. And this guy's a killing machine. They were in a close fight the first time, and the second time was like no different. She managed to defeat this guy the second time, but he was tough. So I got him at 15. At 14, I have Cang the Iron. This man fought against Hitsugaya on 2 occasions. The first time he stole his Bankai, and the second time he was going to defeat Hitsugaya with his own Bankai. And luckily for Hitsugaya, Kisuke created a black pill where he could get his Bankai back. He took it, popped that, boom, Bankai returned. He was able to defeat Cang. You know, Cang was still alive though. Him and BG9 were killed by Jugram because they were defeated by their foes. At number 13, I have Loyd and Loyd. These brothers have the ability to basically replicate other people's appearances and replicate abilities of the people they copy to some degree. You know, obviously the original is more powerful. And why would I say that? Let me show. Let's do this. Yhwach was defeated, or Loyd, whoever the fuck, you know, turned into Yhwach, was defeated by Yamamoto in his Bankai form. You know, he was on the back foot the whole time. Like, nigga, like, when Yamamoto went into his Bankai form, that Sternritter had no chance, right? But it was a strategy played by Yhwach, right? We understand that, you know, he wasn't ever supposed to win, really, to begin with. We have his brother who turned into Kenpachi. Kenpachi was able to defeat him, you know. high level captains ain't losing to this guy. I'm at 13. Like other captains who are weaker captains, they might lose. If this guy decided to turn into one of them and then fight them, they might actually lose. But I got him at 13. Those two brothers at 13. And then at number 12, I got Bambietta the Explosion. She fought against Komura, took his Bankai. She fought against him again. This time she came out the loser. He had to learn a whole Jinka technique and all that extra stuff, right, to beat her. She led a group called the Bambi Unit. It was her leading the Candice, Meninas, Littoto, and Giselle. All of those bitches were under her. So I know she was like the leader of that group. She was really fucking them up with that explosion. Like the Soul Reapers, that is. At 11, I got Mass D Masculine. This guy gets stronger with his hype man, James, on the side. Anytime something happens to James, he's like, oh my gosh, I have to get stronger for my fans. I can't lose. I'm a superstar. That's what Mass D Masculine is. He's the superstar. So he beat Renji the first time, they came to, society. He proceeded to beat down, Ikaku and Yumichika and Shuhei and two captains, by the way. He beat two captains, so I definitely had to give him, almost top 10 status. This guy wasn't playing games, nigga. I got him at number 11. He ain't one of the weaker ones. And it took Renji, who trained with the Royal Guard to unleash his, realize his true Bankai, to actually defeat this man. At number 10, I got Bazz B, the Heat. Bazz B came to help Cang fight his battle. He was like, I need to help you beat this guy. You're having problems with him. He started, putting some, like, fucking hurt on Hitsugaya. In the first invasion, he was wiping a lot of just average, sorties out with ease. He wasn't even sweating. Boom, boom. This guy's flames are as hot as, or some even believe it's hotter than Yamamoto's flames. This guy can summon that shit with his burner finger. Now, he did lose to the Grandmaster Jugram, right? But he tried to put up a decent fight. This guy's at number 10. I got number 9. I got Asnodt at number 9. This guy was able to get in Byakuya's head and cause him to feel fear. Making him use his Bankai after he knew already that if he uses his Bankai, they would be at a deficit. They would be at a disadvantage, right? He forced him to do that because he caused Byakuya to feel fearful. That's what his shrift does. Byakuya ends up with his guts, torn out. And he's one of the more powerful captains in 13th Court Guard squads. Second time, his sister has to step in. She's doing pretty well. She's actually the one that forced him to use his boss standing, right? And he was, doing pretty well against Rukia for a little bit. Now then he used her Bankai. He got iced. But it took Rukia, who trained with the Royal Guard again. That Royal Guard training ain't for, weak ass motherfuckers, bro. They actually get you right when you go train with them. She's basically captain level, bro. So, it took her to defeat him. At number 8, I got Gremmy. Gremmy is his. Let me say this: his shrift is very powerful. The Visionary, anything he can visualize can become, right? Because he's the Visionary. He even he created another Sternritter out of nothing, right? He was called Sternritter V, the Vanishing. Kind of like his stand-in, but he was weak as fuck. He was like, I'm not entertained by this anymore. he erased him from existence, right? Because he was just an imagination to begin with. He then turned um, Yachiru's bones into cookies, right? Because he can imagine it, then it can become reality. And it's like no waiting on that shit. It happens instantly. It took Kenpachi to fight against this man, and they had a decent fight. That fight went to high to extreme difficulty. Um, but see, this is why I have him lower. He's a youngin, so he knows how his abilities work. But when he was face to face against somebody who was like, I don't care what you throw at me, I'm gonna cut through it. Doesn't matter if it's this, that. He started seeing his opponent as a person who was unbeatable. And then when that happened, it became reality. And because of that, I can't have him higher. Now his shrift itself, if somebody else had that didn't put that limitation on their mind, would probably use it better. But, you know, he's at number 8. And out of all the regular Sternritters, he's the most powerful. But then we got the shoot stopper, the ones who like run around with Yhwach. They're like the elite guard. They went up to fight against the royal guard, right? So I have at number 7, I have Askin, right? This guy, he can use lethal dosages. He can hit you with just enough poison that it kills you. He forced Wetsumi Maya to drain his own blood. Luckily for him, Tendro was there to, restore him, right? He didn't die when Senjimaro used Bantai. Now that's Yhwach saving his life and everybody else. But he then fought against Yoroichi. Yoroichi, was really giving him the fucking business, right? She forced him into going into his raw standing form. Then Urahara was fighting him. Urahara then had to break out his Bankai. He never did that shit against anyone in the series, but this opponent forced him to open that shit up, right? So I have to give him some credit. And he's gonna be at number 7. At number 6, I got Pernida. I think he's the left hand. The other hand, that's not Mimihagi. Mimihagi's the other hand, right? This hand is the compulsory, right? Pernida. Pernida can adapt to different, things at a rapid rate. Have something to do with him being, again, the right hand of the Soul King, or the left hand, I don't remember. But he's a creature, right? He's a portion of the Soul King. This guy's powerful. I got him at number 6. He fought against Mayuri. And see, he wasn't like outright obliterated by Mari. Mari boxed him in. So he can then do research on whatever, like how he works, how he operates. He was gonna run tests on him and figure out what's going on with this. And it took like a lot of effort. He lost Nemu in this, encounter. He didn't want to lose her, but he, it was what it was. Number 5 is Uryu with his antithesis. This guy can basically whatever happens to him, right, can now happen to you. He can give you the damage you dealt to him. He has the same shrift letter as Yhwach, but he doesn't have Yhwach's powers. But his shrift's pretty, decent. Compared to what he had without a shrift, he was a lot more powerful when he was given the power of the antithesis. But I only give him number 5. I wouldn't say he's like past that because these niggas are on another level, man. Because number 4, I have Lillie Barrow. This guy was basically semi-immortal, and he has 2, both standing levels, right? In the first level, he forced the new head captain, Shunsui, to use his Bankai, right? Some character that we haven't seen his Bankai. He never used it against the Arankars or any earlier. He had no choice. He's like, I have to use this shit now. Drop the curtains and everything. Boom, he wasn't dead. He came back to life and he started, he took on an owl transformation. This guy is semi-immortal. This guy is powerful. It took a sword, from the Issei family, right, to cut him down. And even when she cut him down, he started laying eggs basically, and these little creatures started forming. He was never truly defeated, but he was defeated. He was a tough opponent. Head captain couldn't beat him alone. He needed his lieutenant to come and try to help out with that. And then I have number 3. I have Gerad the Miracle. He came up on these, Soul Reapers. He was like, miracles happen, man. All you were standing here before me, but I can beat all of you. And he's like, I don't think so. They thought so. And then what happened? All of them were laid out, knocked the fuck out. the I know the anime shows all of the the Vizards headed by Shinji, all of them put on their masks, holification, all of them. They all use an attack, a combined attack to attack this guy, and it does nothing. He heals from his wounds and he only gets more powerful. Kenpachi comes in, Hitsugai comes in, freezes him, he breaks out of the ice and he's stronger. Byakuya comes in and cuts him up with Zenbon Sakura, he becomes stronger. Kenpachi comes in and slices his arm off and he becomes stronger. He's said to have the heart of the Soul King inside of him. That shit's pretty powerful, boy. Let's not even sleep on that shit. That's 3 captains, and these captains are like, they're in the like top tier, boy. Hitsugai is not some boy anymore in my book, nigga. He's one of those fucking guys. He's an operator like that. Stop sleeping on Toshiro. You ain't sleeping on Kenny, and you're not sleeping on Byakuya either. These guys are top 5 in the Soul Society as far as captains go, and they're still, all 3 of them are standing there in Gerard Factory's like, I can take all of you. This dude's a fucking issue. Number 2, I have Jugram, because this man can take, he's the balance, but he switches powers with Yhwach, and he can use the Almighty. So then he can see different outcomes of the future. Now he can't use the power as well as Yhwach can, but he's the Grand Master. He's the one who was chosen first, and he ends up fighting against Uryu. Now he eventually does lose, but he's like that. He's the Grand Master for a reason. Number 2, or actually number 1 now. There's no, denying it, nigga. It's Yhwach. He is the Quincy King, the son of the Soul King. He mounted an attack 1,000 years ago. It didn't work. He came back 1,000 years later, and he was laying waste to him, bro. He absorbed the Soul King, and Ichigo, and all of his attacks ain't doing shit to him, bro. Ain't doing nothing to him as of episode 3 of the Calamity. Ain't doing nothing to this man. Bankai, he can see all futures. He's powerful. He's basically like a god almost. And that is the ranking of the Sternritters from Bleach. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below, and be cool, call in the corner.